this is Jenna Burt, host of the Confessions of a Military Spouse podcast. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Julianne Condia, host of Rewritten here on Public House Media. Thank you so much for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you are done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Rewritten, where we will talk about you having limitless potential and can rewrite your story at any time. No matter your background, your past, or current situation, you can have the type of life you crave. A new show comes out every single Monday. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Rewritten. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Welcome to the C. Jane Sell podcast,
a relatable sales podcast for your weekly dose of sanity. I'm your host, Chelsea Dupre.
and I'm your host, Lee Nevis.
Welcome to another episode of C. Jane Sell. For anybody who's returning, we're happy you're here. For anybody who's new and listening, you are tuning into the right pod and right episode. So you've heard me talk many times about my obsession with Chris and Kelsey at Wild Eggs, and mine and my husband's habit of going there every Saturday.
They're the regulars.
Yeah, they know our orders, and like the 3 that we rotate through, it's fine. But Kelsey's dad started Wild Eggs, and it is franchised, and he has another restaurant, Napa River Grill, and he's a phenomenal businessman, and he has so much to share with people. So we wanted to bring him on, pick his brain a little bit, and have him tell his story about how he did what he did and the work he put in and how he got there. So, welcome, JD.
Thank you.
Woo. Yes. So, we want to start with a little icebreaker question.
Sure.
So, I put out a questionnaire of questions. What would you want to hear from JD? Well, the one that came back with so many, like, we want this is, who was your favorite child?
Yeah, they ask me that all the time. You're just trying to get me in trouble here.
I won't say which one asked me to ask you, but I think we kind of know.
Yeah, probably Kelsey. I have like 8 children. I have 4 godchildren and 4 regular children, and
Oh, wow.
we do family dinners like every Sunday night, and
Yeah.
somehow that always becomes a topic of conversation.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's
Perfect.
hilarious.
Now we know.
Yep, absolutely. Well, obviously, like, you have a big family, and you have this huge family now in the restaurant business. So kind of take us back to why you got your start in the restaurant business, where that passion came from, where it all began.
Sure.
To the beginning.
Okay. Well, the beginning was quite a ways back. I've been in the business about 48 years.
Oh, wow.
And started really very young in Denver, and was bussing tables, doing dishes, and just kind of worked my way through. In college, I went to 2 years of college. I didn't graduate, but I got hired on at a local little steakhouse in Gunnison, Colorado, and by 20 I was a manager there, and I just really had a passion for the business. I think it's just being around people, being involved with, the community. And so back then, just started doing that. Moved on to a couple nationals companies over the last, for about 10 years. I worked for TGI Fridays and Steak and Ale Corporation.
Wow.
But in 93, a gentleman moved me here to Louisville. Worked for Grisani's Restaurants. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but they were Italian restaurants here in Louisville. And I became his director of operations back in like 94. Mm-hmm. And he asked me what my ultimate goal was, and I said I wanted to own a restaurant. So about 7 years later, we decided to create and open Napa River Grill. We opened that in 99, and 3 years after that I bought it from him. And then Shane and I, who was my general manager at Napa River Grill, developed Wild Eggs. And we opened our first one in 2007, and we now have 16 restaurants. and 450 employees.
It's pretty amazing.
I didn't realize it was already up to 16. That's insane. Wow.
Yeah, we have five franchised locations, 11 company-owned locations. And just, keeps you young. You're always around younger people.
Yeah.
I mean, this business generally, it's younger people trying to get through college. I mean, there's some lifers.
Yeah.
But it keeps you young because it's really active and very social. So just very passionate about taking care of people. We call it, when I'm interviewing people for positions with us, management positions, we talk about a servant heart. And it's something I think I have, my family has. Kelsey, Katie, I don't know if you know Bonnie. But we just kind of all share that. They grew up watching me run restaurants and really took to it. They're very good at it.
They're great.
They understand, how to take care of the guest. And when I say a servant heart, it's really just wanting to take care of people, want people to be happy. I think I mentioned we do family dinners every Sunday night, and generally at my house, because we just like to entertain and make sure people are happy and having a good time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think that such a huge part of, especially sales, which is, mostly what this podcast is about, is all about service and customer service. And
Service
I think
plays a huge role into it.
completely. So what advice could you give to someone, maybe if they're like just starting out and they, maybe they haven't worked in a restaurant before and this is like their first sales job? Like, what do you think are the most important things when it comes to giving great service?
Well, I think one is being happy. I think that people got to want to do that. And I think that, just being happy, enjoying what they do. I think, sales is just anything you do in life. I tell people all the time that it doesn't matter what you do, you just have to be passionate about it. I know people who ride on the back of garbage trucks and they're passionate about what they do.
Hey, they make good money.
They do. But I think passion is a big piece of it. If you're not happy doing what you do, it's really hard to make somebody else happy. If you don't believe in the product or what you're selling, it's hard to get people, to believe in that product. I think, with Wild Eggs, I think we have a really good staff, but I think they're very confident in the product. They're confident in the process. So it makes it really easy for them to go out to their tables and sell. I'm not a big sales guy, meaning, if you put me in a sales job, I'd probably fail miserably because I don't like to push people in a direction.
Right.
But I think I think you just got to be happy doing what you're doing. You got to be passionate about it. And I think if you do that, you can be successful in anything.
Absolutely.
One of my questions is, a lot of times people, when they want to open a business, the first thing, I feel like the majority, and I could be totally wrong, but a lot of people want to open a bar or a restaurant. And so what kind of advice do you give to entrepreneurs like, I want to do this? Like,
Sure.
What would you say to them?
Well, I think first of all, be careful what you wish for. It may come true. Restaurants have one of the highest mortality rates, if you will, in business.
Why do you think that is?
Well, a lot of people think because they might have a good recipe or their mother was a good cook or they're passionate about food that they can be successful in this business. And I think it's like anything else. I think first and foremost, what I would say for the person that wants to go out and open a restaurant or a bar, go learn the business.
Yeah.
There's a lot to it, People used to say when I was growing up in this business, they'd ask a server or a bartender, when are you going to get a real job? And to me, these are real jobs.
Yeah.
I tell my managers all the time, if you think about it, if you're managing a restaurant, you're dealing with HR, you're dealing with financials, you're dealing with budgets, you're dealing with facility management, you're dealing with health codes. It's not brain surgery, as they say, but there is a lot of different facets to being successful in any business. But when you're managing a bunch of employees and you're having to, live to health codes and keep equipment running and do HR and PR, it's running a business is you need to have a lot of information in a lot of different areas to be successful.
Absolutely. So Kelsey was telling me that when you do are they like seminars or when you open a place?
Orientations.
Yeah. what do you say? Because she said that when you talk at your orientations, it's just is so captivating. So I want to hear what you say to these people to get them. Because when I go there, these people genuinely, I feel like they love it.
Sure.
They are so bought in, not like they need to buy into like anything like that. They just love the company. They love the food. The entire crew seems to jive and like just,
Sure.
I mean, you guys are the equivalent in restaurant to Chick-fil-A isn't drive-through. Everyone's like so
Right.
happy, like, my pleasure to serve
Yes,
you.
yeah.
Like, what can I do for
Sure.
you? So that's what I would think. So what do you say to these people getting pumped?
Well, when we orientate people, we have, and this goes back, we developed this back in 97 as we were developing Napa River Grill. And we have what we call our core values and principles. And so when we open a new restaurant or we hire a new individual or I hire a new manager, my partner and I, Shane Hall, take the time to sit down with that new manager eye to eye, face to face. And we talk about our core values and principles and how, they're very important to us. But, a lot of companies, when they talk about core values and principles, they're always talking about how we treat the employee or how the employee should treat the guest. And for us, the core values and principles kind of are a two-way street. What we expect from our staff is what they should expect from us. And, we talk about things like integrity. We talk about, I could go through those core values and principles, but that would take me probably about 2 hours. Our orientations take about 2 hours.
Oh, do they? Okay.
But it's really just talking about, I'll never forget, we had a franchisee, and this man was very successful in business. He was able to retire at 35 and got tired of being retired, so he went back to work. Well, he became our first franchisee, and I'll never forget that when we finished our orientation for his first restaurant, he came to me and he said, I have, 300 employees, and I would like you to come speak to my employees, because I was really captivated by that. What you said today, because what you said is not just geared towards wild eggs, it's geared towards life, basically.
Yeah.
And so that's really important. And I think when you tell people what you expect and they understand that they should expect it from you as well, that you can begin to kind of form this relationship where they want to do good things for you because you're trying to do good things for them.
Yeah.
I always tell my managers, happy employees make happy guests. And so if we treat our employees with respect and we treat them the way they should be treated, they go out and they treat our guests that way. If you come in every morning and you yell at your staff and then you want them to go stand out front with your guests, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to take that bad attitude with them, and they're going to, kind of poison the pot, if you will.
Yeah.
So I think it's just really, accountability, respect, doing the things you say you're going to do, walk the walk. And we expect that from them, and they expect that from us. And it makes for a pretty successful environment. I will say, we as I said, we opened 16 restaurants. And we had some very difficult times because you hire somebody and you put them through a 6-week training program. And you orientate them and you talk about these things, and then you send them off to run your restaurant in another city. And you go up there and you look around and you're like, what happened? Yeah. You have employees, because we do these for all new stores. And so I'll go into a restaurant and a new employee will come to me and say, do you really believe in your core values and principles? And I'll say, absolutely. And they'll say, well, your manager doesn't. Oh. And so that's kind of when you got to make some decisions. You either got to retrain, spend a lot more time in that environment, or retool, because it's no joke. If you don't live up to that, if you don't do these things in any business, it's going to be really hard to be successful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, it says a lot that if you have an employee that can come to you and say that their boss, isn't holding up to what the core values are, that says a lot about you.
Right.
That you actually believe in them and that you're approachable enough and are believe in them enough to do something about it.
Sure.
So that's amazing.
Well, I mean, from the president down,
Yeah.
When I go into a restaurant, I don't want my staff to see me different. I pick stuff up off the floor. I talk to my guests. I take plates off tables. I expo food. I show them what I want them to do by doing it, not by standing in a corner and barking orders a day. So yeah, it's pretty captivating. People get really. It's funny because we've done some of these, and some people get really emotional. I mean, I've had, Shane and I have had probably over the years, maybe 50 people come to us and say, you really changed our lives. Like we live this not only here at work, but we kind of live this out of work, and we're much happier, we're more successful, and we really appreciate what you told us.
Well, and I know the pod, we try not to go like 2 hours, but can you give us some of that? Can you give us some of your speech? Because we want our people to be happy, and we want our listeners to feel what basically you're saying. So, I mean, we can ask you a bunch of questions, but from what I've taken away from employees at your restaurants, this is what I want people to hear.
Yeah, so, as I said earlier, we have our core values and principles, and we kind of go through this with all of our employees. We define them for them, and, I'll just give you, I'll tell you our core values and principles, then maybe we can talk a little bit about them. But, our core values are really just focus and great service is a choice, accountability, priority, passion, positive attitude, and fun. And those are really, the core values. That's what we want people to experience. You got to be focused. If you're in business and you really understand your goal and you're focused on it, there's a really good chance you'll achieve it. In a lot of businesses and a lot of people, they change their focus so quickly and so often nobody can follow. So they don't know exactly what to do. So it's really important to us that we're focused. We say great service is a choice. This really goes to our servant heart type thing. When I hire somebody in our restaurants, they have a choice to make. Give great service. If you're rude to a guest, you've made a choice, right? Absolutely. We make mistakes. People make mistakes. We make mistakes on order. Stuff happens. But being rude or dismissive of a guest is a choice, and it's one of those things that we don't stand for. And so we let them know up front, you're making a choice. If you join us, you need to understand that we're looking for great service. And that's not just server, bartender, that's the kitchen. Even though the kitchen doesn't see the guest, when they produce the food, they're doing it for a guest. So they have to have, they got to have great service in mind, because if they do, they'll produce great food. If they think, well, it's not my job to take care of the guests because there's a server out there, then they probably don't do as well on the food and that side of it. You eat there a lot. I mean, it's really important to us that we put out great food. Accountability. If I had one thing to tell people in management or leadership, accountability is like paramount. People generally want to be led, but they want to understand what they're supposed to do. They want them and others to be held accountable. When you run into problems, it's when I try and hold you accountable for something, but I'm not consistent with somebody else. So now you're upset because I'm holding you accountable to a different standard than someone else. And rightfully so. If you give everybody the expectation, the focus, and then you hold everybody accountable and self-accountability, everybody's pretty comfortable because they're all held to the same standard. What I see most in management is people who there's no accountability. They want to yell at, if you make a mistake, they yell at everybody. But you're sitting there thinking, why is he yelling at me? I didn't do that. And you're probably thinking, well, he's not talking to me. So it's really important to be and I'm old school. I mean, I've said I've been in this business a long time. I email, I text, I use cell phones. I'm with it. But I believe in face-to-face, eye-to-eye communication. If I have an issue with you, we should do it face-to-face. I want to let you know what the issue is, tell you what I think you need to do to fix it. You know it's an issue. I'm not yelling at you for something she did. And so I think accountability is really important. And then, passion, as I said earlier. I think you got to be passionate about what you do, and that's the one thing people tell me when we do these orientations is I stop and they're like, oh my God, you're so passionate about what you do, and they can hear it in my voice and they can see it, and it's like infective. You know what I mean? When you're passionate about something, like they say, if you smile, someone will smile back. Well, passion is the same thing. And so we think that's very important. A positive attitude. I always use the kind of glass half full, glass half empty. There's an old school store, it was called Successories, and they did all those like posters and pictures of together each achieves more, and all the sayings. Details make the difference, and there's a beautiful rose with. Yeah. So when I say Successories, everybody looks, because I'm old and I remember Successories.
That's amazing.
But there was this. We always hung this in our first restaurants, and it was a matchbook, and it basically said, "Attitudes are contagious as yours worth catching," and it had someone striking one match to a book of matches. Well, the whole book goes up if you do that. And so, but most people in their mind are thinking negative attitude is contagious. I think positive attitude is contagious.
Oh, yeah.
So when we talk about attitude and we talk about positive attitude, we're looking at it from a positive side. Not that negative attitudes are contagious. But if you don't let them creep in, you can turn somebody positive just as easy you can turn somebody negative.
Absolutely.
And so, those are our core values. Our principles really is just fairness, integrity, trustworthiness, mutual contribution, always do the right thing, respect, balance, and then one that I really like is law of the harvest. The law of the harvest, it works for everything from we open a new store, we got a bunch of new employees, they're the seeds. So we got to plant them, give them information, train them properly, teach them what we're trying to do. That's kind of cultivating them, right? And if you do all that, then you get really good, strong stocks. Same goes for business. If you approach your business as law of the harvest, if you're not trying to make money right off the bat, if you're not trying to see how much you can squeeze out of it in profit, if you really just pay attention to what you need to do to make your business successful, it's the law of the harvest. You do all that, and then it's really fruitful, and it's really, you get a lot out of it. It takes time to build a business, and if you have expectations early, and a lot of people, they just basically strip it down. In my business, it's always talking about labor, food cost. And most of my managers will tell you they might have had one or two conversations over the years with me about profit. I don't talk about profit. I talk about sales. I talk about driving the business. If you drive the business, do more sales, do more business, profit takes care of itself. These companies that go out of business, these companies that don't make it, generally are they're focused on the bottom line and not where that comes from. And it really comes from sales. And it doesn't matter what you're selling. I tell everybody the story, Blockbuster. Remember the tape company?
Yes, I do.
So they were a Fortune 200 company. And everybody thinks they went out of business because that everything changed. Netflix, all that.
Right.
Well, I read an article about it, and the reason that they speculated that they actually went out of business is that they were so rude to their guests. They were so rude to their customers with late fees and rewind fees. When they were the only thing in town, right? You'd take a tape back, it'd be a day late, and they'd charge you $4 for it.
Right.
Then they'd charge you $2 to rewind it, and they were rude about it, right? But they were the only game in town, so everybody rented tapes from them. But when all these other companies came on board, Netflix, Redbox, everybody kind of got in the groove. I read the paper, and it said they went out of business because their customer was so angry with them over their late fees and rewind fees that when there were other options, they refused to use Blockbuster. So it's kind of weird. There's a Fortune 200, maybe a Fortune 100 company, a multi-billion-dollar company that is no longer in business. And it's really not about it wasn't about that they didn't change with the times. They just pissed too many people off.
Nobody wanted to stay
That's
loyal.
a really good point.
Exactly.
Because, think about how many bookstores are still in business, and you can buy books, electronic, you don't have
need
to,
exactly.
And that's a really good point.
But you go down, you go in, they got a place to get coffee, they take good care of you, you can sit in the aisle and read a book.
Absolutely.
You don't have to buy it. If you walked in and they said, what are you doing sitting there reading the book? You can't read that book, pay for it. You'd never go back.
Right.
Completely.
But, I think everything hinges on great service. And it really doesn't matter what it is. I don't care if you're a doctor, an insurance salesman, a car dealer. If you take really good care of your people, if they feel really comfortable, they're going to continue to use you.
People buy people, like someone's not necessarily buying, what I'm selling. They're buying me as a person.
Yes. They buy service. In my industry, I've been in it a very long time, and I've seen it change. Back in the 80s, it was all about price and portion.
Yeah.
Service was not even discussed back in the 80s, really. I mean, you had to give service, you had to take orders, you had to do what you had to do,
Right.
but service wasn't the word. It was all about how big was my portion, what was the cost.
Yeah.
Then in the 90s, this whole service kind of phenomenon started, and in the 2000s it continued, and now it's stronger than ever, and that is that people want great service. They want to be taken care of. You talk about my daughter Kelsey, you go back and you see her, yes, you like eating at Wild Eggs, but at the end of the day, there's other breakfast places. You can make breakfast at home.
I should.
But you go because you enjoy
the experience.
Right, and service.
Yeah, the service is amazing. Kelsey and Chris always check in. They remember things. Like, I made friends with other regulars that go there. Like, it's an actual experience. It's a highlight of the weekend.
Sure.
It's what we do. It's just our little tradition, and we look forward to it every week.
Yeah, it creates like a community.
Yeah. I've met so many friends from there. So
when I opened Napa River Grill, I'll tell you a quick story. I'm full of stories. My daughter would tell you that. We opened Napa River Grill, and one day I was running a shift. It was pretty early on. We'd been open maybe 3 or 4 months. And I had one of my servers came back and said, JD, I've got a guest who's upset out here with his chicken. It's raw. So I went out, I go out to the table. I introduce myself. I tell him, I'm very sorry for the problem. Let me take care of this for you. I take the plate off the table. I go back. I get to the kitchen. I instruct them on what I want them to do. While they're cooking it, I go back. I get them some wine. I make sure they're having a good time. I apologize again. And long story short, the chicken comes out. It's perfect. I now know this gentleman's name. I won't share it here on the Cat podcast, but we become friends. He's probably one of the wealthiest men in Louisville. I had no idea of that when I approached his table. And he will tell you to this day that Napa River Grill was his favorite restaurant, and it was because of the first experience he had, which was a bad experience that we turned into a really positive experience. And over the years, a lot of my best guests, unfortunately, are from bad experiences because of the way we take care of it, introducing yourself, telling him, I told him, anything you need when you return, you ask for me. And he started using us on a regular basis. We did his wedding. We did all the events for years for him because of this one bad experience. So, yeah, service is really important. And, the food, whatever you're selling is important.
Right.
If you're selling a car, you got to have a good car. If you're selling, bow ties, you got to have good bow ties. But at the end of the day, people, it's a connection. It's a people business. And the last thing we have is, of course, back in the day, they were mission statements. Everybody had a mission statement, and I like to say that, as I was going through couple companies in the 80s, everybody had mission statements. But it was really just writing on a piece of paper because they really didn't live to that mission statement. Well, today they're really not called mission statements, but we call it our passion, and what it is it's a boundless enthusiasm for the guest experience. And I tell all my people, if you have that, we cannot fail.
Right.
Because if everybody goes at it every day, from the way you clean your bathrooms to the way you prepare your food to the way you serve people, if everybody just has this sense of a boundless enthusiasm for the guest experience, it's impossible to fail.
I love that.
That is pretty awesome.
So that's kind of our, orientation in a nutshell. Everybody's supposed to go through it. Managers definitely go through it. Every meeting we have, we talk about it. Every regional meeting, general managers meeting, managers meeting. It's in the forefront. They know what we're talking about, and it makes a huge difference in the success of our business.
That's pretty awesome.
That's
Thanks.
awesome. I love that too, especially so I worked in the restaurant business for a very long time. I mean, I started as a host when I was 17, worked all the way until I was like 26 as a bartender. I'm now back starting my own business, working part-time as a cocktail server. Like, I personally love the restaurant business, and I think that these core values are so important, and I feel like I wish like so many places I would have had these, because when I was like 17, 18 years old, I didn't know anything. I just was like, I'm going to go in, I'm going to make money, whatever. I don't care about this person. And I think that if someone would have, explained this to me in this way, being nice and giving great service, it not only obviously helps the guest, come back, but it also makes you have an easier shift.
Yeah.
Like,
well, it's how you make money.
Absolutely. Like,
at the end of the day, that's why we do everything, right?
Yeah.
Completely.
Work's a 4-letter word. They do it because they have to, not because,
Yeah.
people. I don't employ billionaires. They're out there to make money. They're out there to earn a living, and being happy and taking great care of people makes it a whole lot easier. Makes it fun.
Absolutely.
Makes more money. I mean, everything works out. My partner, Shane Hall, who helped me, him and I are the co-founders of Wild Eggs. He started for me. It's funny, we tell this story because in 1999, we were opening Napa River Grill.
Right.
We were 1 day from orientation, and this guy walks in the front door, and I'm walking around, I'm doing the final inspection on the restaurant. We're finishing construction. We're getting ready to move to the next phase. And he walks in and he says, "Hey, I'm here to apply. I want to be a server." And I said, I'm a little busy right now, but I'll tell you what, go ahead and fill out the application. And he did, and I walked back up, and he said, here's the application. I said, well, walk with me. We're walking around the restaurant, I'm looking at stuff, we're just having a conversation. And, I felt like he was a good guy, he had a good background. I said, can you be here tomorrow? It's our orientation. Here's the address, can you be there? He said, yeah, sure. So he comes to this orientation, he tells people in our orientations now, he's sitting right in the center, front row of this orientation. And he said he sat through this orientation and it changed his life. He just felt like there was something different about not only what we were saying, but the way we were saying it and who was saying it. Mm-hmm. Well, long story short, Shane became a manager for me, my general manager. Him and I became partners, and he and I are the co-founder of Wild Eggs. And he started for me in 1999 as a server.
That's pretty awesome.
Amazing.
But he bought in.
Yeah.
Yep.
He bought in. He's probably the best people person I know. I mean, talk about taking care of problems and talking to people. He said things to people, I don't even know how he got away with it, and they just laugh and they love him. I mean, they love him. I own Napa River Grill. He was my manager. But kind of the way we teamed it is I ran the back, he ran the front. Mm-hmm. They didn't come to Napa River Grill and ask for me. They came to Napa River Grill and asked for Shane.
Yeah.
And people would say, does that bother you? I'm like, why would it bother me? I mean, I'm doing what I'm passionate about. He's doing what he's passionate about.
Yeah.
They love him. And so we were really successful with it. But he was the face of Napa River Grill. And he was a server for me in 1999. So
That's crazy.
It just shows you what people can do when they kind of buy in and, drink the Kool-Aid, so to speak.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Napa River is like a nicer, like kind of more like upscale kind of place. So
Yeah.
if you have a good rapport with like more like upscale guests, like that's saying something because they can be
Needy.
a little more needy than the average.
They are, but at the same time, they're it's kind of like buying not to say there should be a difference, but if you're buying a Volkswagen or a Lexus,
Absolutely.
you should get the same service. Mm-hmm. But Lexus has, soft drinks for you and the coffee maker, and I go into Porsche, they have,
There's more
cookies, and you go into
yeah.
Volkswagen, they're very nice, but nobody's serving you, drinks and biscottis.
Right.
So, I mean, people expect more. The more people pay for something, the more they expect from it.
Which I think is fair.
Yeah.
Completely.
Although I think no matter what you pay for something, you should get what you pay for. Mm-hmm. In these orientations, I tell people that I'm that guy that if I go to McDonald's and I order a double cheeseburger and fries, it's $5. But when I order it, I want my fries hot. I want my double cheeseburger with the onions and my 3 pickles stacked on top of each other, and a great Diet Coke, right? And if you order it and you get home and your fries are cold or they're not fresh, or you ask for something special on your hamburger and it's not there, it doesn't matter whether it costs you $1 or $90.
Yeah.
It's still aggravating.
Yes.
It's not necessarily about the price. It's about I expect what I expect from that experience.
Yep.
And it's hot French fries, a good hot hamburger, and a great Diet Coke.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of something that has happened with. So my husband has a fast signs franchise with his brothers and his dad, and so along the way they learned very quickly whenever they underbid a job. It happened a lot. It was a learning curve, right? Yeah. But they still had to produce what they said for the cost that they said they were going to do it. It doesn't matter if you underbid it.
Yep.
You got to provide what you're saying you're going to provide. Or like we had an experience with our deck where these guys, they're really great and they're just starting, but they definitely underbid the project and they got a little sloppy at the end. I was like, that just isn't cool.
Right. Well, they want you telling all your friends to use them to build your deck.
Exactly.
But now you're telling them, hey, these guys underbid. They didn't finish it right. I had a contractor like that caused me major anxiety. But and we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. And but I agree. If you're expecting something and there's a promise, you just want what you're promised.
Give what you've sold, what you've promised, and learn from it, and then bid it out higher next time.
Yeah. I mean, there's a way to get your money back.
Yeah. Well, if you make them happy, they will come back as a return
Absolutely.
customer, or they'll refer you, which I think is pretty incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so, what advice would you give somebody? Like, we want to give you kind of a stage or a platform. What would you say to somebody that really just comes from your heart?
Again, I think that, one, you got to really kind of figure out what you're passionate about. We were talking before the podcast a little bit about, there's so many opportunities out there, and it's not all really that difficult. You just got to find the right thing, but it really doesn't matter what it is. You just have to be passionate about it. And then I think that, you got to be consistent, and you, as we talked about before, if you're in a position of leadership, I feel like management and leadership are two different things. Management is kind of SOP, standard operating procedures. You give somebody a handbook and tell them how to do something, teach them how to do it, and then you manage them on that, right? That's management. Leadership is when people want to do and want to follow you. It's when people want to, learn from you and stay with you and be successful with you. So, but I think that, I just think being passionate about what you do makes it all so much easier. And it really, my godson just graduated college, comes out of college. He went through a couple jobs. He graduated with a finance degree. Went out and was going to sell insurance. Then he was going to sell stocks. Went to another insurance broker. Calls me one day. We have lunch. He's telling me how unhappy he is. He's been working for me for 5 years as a server. And I see him in that environment and how happy he is with it. He wants to be around people. Long story short, he's managing for me now. And he loves it. Is it the end? No. He'll learn from this. I told him, worst case scenario, you work it, you do it a couple of years, you're passionate about it, you learn, then you take what you learn and you put it to the next phase. So I think you got to be passionate, you got to be willing to learn, and then you take what you learned and you make hay. You go out and be successful with
Absolutely.
it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Was there ever a time when your passion just kind of dwindled a little bit?
Well, there was a time when I changed professions. I happened to move back to Denver. My mother got sick. We moved back to Denver, and they had just legalized limited stakes gaming in Colorado. And my father had a friend who had 3 casinos, and they needed a director of operations. So with my experience, they gave me that position. And frankly, it was a very well-paid, kind of high-end position, and I hated it. Nobody's happy. People are losing their money.
Yeah.
It's a whole different business. And so I got right back into the restaurant business, and just it's where I'm most happy. I like the service aspect. I love the food. I like the high pace. I love being in our kitchens when it's like a ballet. You see this stuff on TV, all the cooking shows and what's his name, Gordon Ramsay, great chef, but that's not reality. If I talked to people like that in my restaurant, I wouldn't have any employees.
Oh my gosh,
so it's
mean.
made for TV. But when you go in, if you were to come into my restaurant and stand there on a Saturday, it's just like, it's amazing. You got 7 or 8 guys, girls standing on a line, hot pans, sharp knives, and it's like everybody's just moving within themselves. And if we taped it one time, we taped a night in one of our restaurants, and you play it back and put it to music, it's almost like a ballet.
That's pretty cool.
But it's exciting, and it my partner asked me today, are you happy? I said, I love what I do. There's daily challenges. Every day is a challenge. Staffing challenges, health code challenges. That's what makes it worthwhile, I guess.
That's awesome.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, sure, anytime.
Definitely. If you want to take a little time to tell people where to find you, if you have a new restaurant that you want to talk about, anything.
Well, we don't have any new restaurants yet, although we are looking for a couple new locations here in Louisville. But you can find us. I'm always in our restaurants around town. I travel a lot right now. I spend time in Indianapolis and Cincinnati.
Nice.
So.
Do you guys have an
us
Instagram?
There. We do. I have a marketing person who handles. We have, of course, Facebook. We're pretty big on Facebook, that kind of social media. We have an Instagram. We have our own. We just developed our own app. And we're in the process of. We're not quite finished. At the end of the day, with this app, you'll be able to put your name on our waiting list. You'll be able to order, like everybody else, order from your phone.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
A lot of those convenient things. Some of that stuff's a little more difficult with full service, but it's necessary. It's where we're going, right?
Yeah.
I eat DoorDash 4 days a week. When I'm on the road and I finally get back to my hotel, I generally don't go out. I just call DoorDash. And I call it R&D because we use DoorDash. So I want to see what they're doing when I order and when I get stuff. And but you'll be able to do a lot of that stuff from our app. So
That'd
we'll
be
keep
cool.
Nice.
Look, you can find it in the App Store right now. It's just Wild Eggs, and it's
cool.
in the Apple Store.
Awesome.
It's got a lot of interesting stuff on it, some cool photos, talks a lot about our business. But soon it'll give you the opportunity to get on our wait list and order food.
That's great.
Awesome. Great.
Love
Well,
it.
thank you so much for joining us
Yeah.
today. Put Wild Eggs in the Highlands.
Well, we're that's a tough one because we've got the one in DuPont and the one downtown.
I know.
So it's kind of like right in the middle of both of those.
Yeah.
We're actually looking maybe out in the Fern Creek area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So we think there's room for another 1 or 2 here in Louisville.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you go to Middletown, any of them.
Yeah.
It's lines and lines. I'm a bar girl,
Yeah.
so I just hover.
Yeah.
I do that too. When I go in, me and my family, we usually go and sit at the bar.
Yeah.
I am. I always
Once in a while, I'll call and say, "Hey, I'm going to be there in 30 minutes. Can you get me a table?" I never step in front of anybody in line. I just get to put my name on
the
list from the phone, which
That's awesome.
we don't let a lot of people do that. It
But-
creates,
Right.
But
You
I
kinda
never
have a
try and
little-
get in front of anybody. I mean, but it's a little benefit.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Oh,
Great.
cool.
Someday come over. I'll teach you how to cook eggs.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Next podcast, egg cooking.
It'll be a
Please.
cooking show.
Yeah.
That'll
I
be
am an expert. Expert.
An egg.
Yeah.
Expert.
My son is like, "Dad, nobody cooks eggs like you." So.
Oh my
Oh
gosh.
man.
Well, I mean, with a name like Wild
It's funny,
Eggs,
he's
you kinda
12
got
and I've
to.
taught him how to flip eggs, and it's pretty cool.
That's
He's
pretty
pretty
great.
good at it.
That's
Okay.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's
We'll
amazing.
do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your
Sure.
time today. Definitely stay tuned next week. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Please go to Wild Eggs if
The
you've
Calamity
never been.
Katie is the bomb.
Yep.
That's my jam.
It's so good. It's amazing. But we will be back next week. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at CJ Podcast.